Come on in, and we will set up more chairs as needed. Hopefully we can have standing room only. All right, so I am Leah Dodgen, and my husband and I, this is Eric. We are the Stake, Welfare, Self-Reliance, and Emergency Preparedness Specialists, and we've been wanting to reach a lot of people, and this group was inspired by God. This group is something that we hope to grow, and we hope to have monthly with all of the topics on the Be Ready Utah page, which is 12 areas of preparedness. We'll go through each one of them throughout each year. And some we might group together. We'll have, we'll bring in some specialists to help to teach. But as far as we know, this is, we are always learning, and this is what we know. So we're going to share what we know, and we hope to also be taught. So I was already taught this morning before everyone came, which was pretty cool.
So we also want you to bring what you know, because we want this to be more of a discussion about this topic than it is just kind of us trying to tell you our knowledge, because we're not the source of knowledge. We hope that as a group we come together and we help each other increase our knowledge and understanding of how to prepare. All right, so just as a reminder, we are recording this. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask your question, and we will try to remember to repeat the question to make sure that the recording hears the question.
We love questions and we want discussion.
All right.
It helps everyone in the class.
So today we're going to talk all about water. We're going to try to cover a big range of this. There's a lot more than there is available in knowledge that we're going to cover, but we're going to cover some of the things we think are the most important. And so this is going to be our
outline
right here. We're going to talk about water storage, water resources, filters, containers, water self-reliance, water wise, watering gardens, sanitation, and then our Be Ready group and what the purpose is, and then we'll take questions.
And we'll do it all in under an hour.
Yeah, that's the goal. All right, so just talking really quick on general counsel. So everyone is aware that the church has been promoting self-reliance and emergency preparedness for generations, right? It is important, it's part of our doctrine, we want to be self-reliant. I do want to point out though, that there's a quote here by Spencer W. Kimball. He was talking in a conference talk, and he said, there are some countries which prohibit savings and or surpluses. Where it is permitted though, which is most of the world, we should listen to the counsel of the brethren and to the Lord. So if anyone has been wondering why in general conference they don't get up and start talking about you need to have food storage, you need to have this much, and water and storage and this much, the reason they don't anymore is because they are talking to a worldwide audience. And there are countries where it is illegal to do that. And if someone felt that the church was telling them they had to do something that was against the law, they would feel a conflict of interest, right? So the church does not do that anymore, but they do not discourage and they do encourage us to continue these preparations and as our laws permit us in the countries that we live.
There's a concert of revelation that has happened over the decades. And we need to listen to things that have been repeated over and over. And we can go back and we can hear what the prophets have said about that. All right.
So another, Boulanger Featherstone said, store enough water for each member of your family to last at least 2 weeks. And that is a minimum. So we're going to move to water storage. On this presentation, I will be sending out a link to anyone who has signed up for the newsletter. And that will include this presentation. So if you want access to these links, you don't have to quickly jot them down. You don't need to take photographs. I can send all of this to you. Just sign up for the newsletter, and the newsletter will have a QR code where you can go to these presentations and get all the information from them. But so that is the 12 areas of preparedness from the BeReadyUtah.gov website.
Is my own question?
Yes.
How do you sign up for the newsletter?
All right, great question.
Yeah.
We will.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a QR code at the end.
There'll be a
and
QR
then all
code.
those flyers was the same QR code. And it's also, how many of you, excuse me, are following the Stake Facebook page? The Stake Facebook page has a post about this class in the newsletter as well. Yeah. And so the link is out there.
So if you are on Facebook, you could follow that, but we will be giving you a QR code. All right, so kind of going along with that counsel that we received about water and having a 2-week supply, some notes. Severe dehydration sets in after 24 hours of no water. You can only last 3 days without it.
Right. How many people think that storing water is not important? Okay, so we don't need to go through all of these. Just understand that it is vital. Water is the one thing that you need. It is the thing that will cause all disease if we don't have it, and death.
Yeah.
So we can move on from this slide and talk about how much we need. The minimum required is 1 gallon per person per day, and that is of drinking water. We store a minimum of a 2-week supply. Okay, minimums. That is only for drinking. We also need to think about sanitation, how we're going to wash our hands. We need to be able to sponge bathe if we're getting pretty stinky in an emergency. So ideally, you should be storing at least 2 gallons of water per person per day for drinking, cooking, and washing. So that is the ideal amount. Why do we only store 2 weeks of water? First off, it's really hard to store a lot of water. It is. It takes up, it's very heavy. It takes up some space in your house or your basement, your garage. But the reason we only ask for 2 weeks is because that water gets you through the initial disaster. Okay? After, if the disaster is lasting longer than 2 weeks, it gives you that buffer time in order to find a water source. So you find the water source and you filter it. And that is, and sanitize it, boil it, whatever we need to do. But we find the source after that initial storage carries us through, and then we can filter it for drinkable water.
And on that note, be thinking in your area what sources are available. We're going to talk a little bit about some sources, but be thinking in your area, what are some areas I could go to find water in an emergency situation, and how would I get it back home, right? And so sometimes part of your water supply is not just the water you have stored in your house, but maybe an empty container that you can use that has wheels on it or something like that, that you could walk somewhere, get water, and bring it back. So, I mean, if you want to carry it and you're all right carrying it, but if you feel like I can't carry that much water for a mile, then maybe you should think about getting a cart that you can bring, or a wheelbarrow or whatever. And you'll notice that in an emergency situation, people will get very creative on carting water. And if you ever go to a third world country where they have to go and get their water from a well and bring it back home, you'll notice they are very creative on how they do that. They put it on their heads, they do all sorts of stuff. We need to be thinking along those terms.
I mean, there's bike trailers that you carry your grandkids in. You can carry water in those. You've got wagons. You can even use like a rolling suitcase. You can stick this into the rolling suitcase, fill it up, and roll it home. Okay, there's a lot of options. We need to be creative in disasters.
All right. So in terms of this water that we are going to get, so that we do not have no water in an emergency situation while we're looking for another supply, how do we store it? So the most important things are here on the left. We need to be out of direct sunlight. So we are not talking about water that you're using out in the yard, right? You don't want to have it sitting directly on concrete. You need to have it up off the concrete on like some wood. You do not want to have it in high heat areas or in freezing cold areas. So a lot of people will store water in their garage because it's very safe there. If it spills, it just kind of washes out, right, of the garage, and it doesn't flood your house. But it does get very cold in the garage and gets very hot in the garage. So unless you have an insulated garage, that's probably not the best place to put it.
But it is an option.
It is an option.
And it's a viable option.
But you want to pay attention to those varying temperatures, because if the temperature continues to go up and down every day, by the midday it's a little warmer, and then by night it gets down, what that does is it promotes bacterial growth, and it can destroy your water supply. So pay attention to how much variation there is in temperature in the place that you're storing it. The best place to store it is somewhere like in a basement. But one thing about storing it in a basement is
in the room where there's the drain.
If you have a drain in that room, be aware that if there is an emergency situation, the sump pump's not going to run. So if your water springs a leak and it's starting to flood, it will flood your house, right? Because the sump pump's not going to pump it out.
I think the main thing that we're trying to say is
Be thinking.
wherever you store it, and it will be better than not having it at all.
But also
Okay.
think about your
Yes.
situation.
Questions?
We have a few questions here.
There's two kinds of water. There's sanitation water and drinking water, though.
Yep.
Yes.
So if you have the drinking water in the basement and the sanitation water in the garage, you'll be fine.
That'll great.
I
That'd
love
be
it.
great.
Brilliant.
Awesome idea.
Thank you.
Okay, and the other problem with storing it in the basement, and I agree, store it, right?
Right.
Wherever, under the bed. There are bladders you can get for that purpose, for storing. If you go to I went to a site
Thank you for
that
coming.
was blue barrels for water storage. And they're like 45 or 55 gallon drums. And they're pretty pricey. I know there's some for sale just on the way out of town here for 20 bucks a piece. Apparently they're food grade barrels. But I'm not kidding, that's your business. All I'm saying on that site, all kinds of water storage devices came up and what they were meant to be used for. And it was a great idea.
Over here.
Also, if you're storing in the basement, once again, store water, but the idea is if your house collapses, if there's some kind of emergency where there's a huge earthquake and it collapses, well, you've got to dig it out to get to your water. At least you have some. Hopefully it hasn't been damaged. My experience with water has been really interesting. I am not let's see, I was going to say I'm not a rule follower, but because I don't change mine out every 6 months. And a lot of people say, well, when you drain it onto your lawn so you're not really wasting it, blah, blah, blah. I have had mine in barrels sealed. That's a critical thing.
Sealed barrels.
No air can get in. And I haven't changed, don't follow my example, but I'm just saying, I have the water and I tried it just last year and it's been sealed in my garage in 45 gallon barrels for 5 years.
5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At
It
least.
does last a long time.
At
I
least.
think another thing that we
And
can
nothing
talk
is
about.
wrong with it. Like
Yeah.
I say, it is perfectly good water. Number one, the containers are the right kind of containers. Number two, I did bleach and rinse and make sure it was okay, and I did put a few drops of bleach in.
Yep.
And then
Bleach
it'll taste
will help
better if you
make it
let
last
fall
longer.
into the glass and let it aerate and get a little bit more oxygen back into it.
Or if you filter it.
Yeah.
So
And you can
that's
also
where those
filter your-
filters come in.
You can also
Should we
filter
move
your
on?
water even after you've stored it.
Yes. If it's tasting a little off, throw it through the filter.
So I
Okay.
have dropped a bunch of links here for a lot of resources that will be available when I send out the newsletter and the presentation. So these are just things you can come back to later.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about water resources now.
Okay. This is something that not many people know. Now, I learned this recently. I meet with the Payson City officials monthly as part of our calling. And I talked to Chief Spencer and I asked him what happens if the water systems break down, if the lines in an earthquake shift and those lines are broken. What do? We have no water. What is the plan that the city has? So he told me that all along these foothills, there are wells that the city has that flow down and they get through the treatment plant. However, these are wells from spring water, so they are potable. So what they'll do in an emergency is they will open up those wells along all of the foothills, and we can go carry or tote or wheel our containers, and we can fill our containers up with the water from those wells. Now they are not going to tell us the location of the wells until the disaster for safety reasons. All right. But in a disaster, the lines will be open, there will be directions, and the emergency responders will be telling us where to go and get the water.
So then the
Okay.
question is, how do you find out where our location will be for our community? Well, that is where our communications come in, and we need to be paying attention to the communications network. So during a grid down situation, they will be using ham radios to communicate. There is a city frequency that we are not supposed to be using as a community to radio into, but this city frequency is where they will be broadcasting all the information. So you can be listening in on that channel. Then also there's a stake headquarters channel that we will be broadcasting from our stake center to all of our ward buildings. And so there are radios set up for the stake headquarters to contact the city, and then there's radios for our stake center to contact the ward buildings. This network of communication is there in place so that when there is a grid down situation and they say, hey, we have a well open up, this is the location, go ahead and send people there, we will get that information out to everyone else as quick as possible.
We will disseminate that to you. How many people have seen this? How many people have it? How many people do not? What ward are you in? 9th. I knew it. We're working on, they're working on getting these out to you, and I'm encouraging them to do so. Okay, this is vital that everybody understands this. This is my little 2-minute plug for this. In an emergency, you first evaluate your own home. Let me get the paper out. Okay, everyone should have gotten these papers. Evaluate your own home. If you're in the green, stick this up on your front-facing window, because the block, there's no block captains, but there will be people going through every block looking for these papers and making check marks. If you are in the red, they will find out what the problem is. They will relay that to us, and that communication line is open and tested weekly. So we have a communication directly to the fire department. They will do their triage, and we can then get the help to our ward members. But please, make sure your wards have these, because it all breaks down at the individual level if you don't get the information.
We have 2 questions.
It should be in your colored papers. It should be in the
They
same
come
Yeah,
together.
They should come together.
Yes.
There was a question here or a comment?
I have a question actually. Back on the wells.
Yeah.
How do they get the water? Are they electric wells? Are they hand pump wells?
So the question was,
Gravity.
how do they get the well? They are gravity fed. The springs come out of the mountain. And so, yeah, they are gravity fed. And they won't need electricity to get water.
That is way cool.
You can go up to Spring Lake and you'll find the water just flowing.
You can find it if you look for it.
Yeah. Tina.
2 questions. Number 1, if you are technically Spring Lake, like we can't go to the dump, are they going to let us use their emergency water?
So in an emergency situation, they will not be carding people. They will not be
No.
asking for your address.
No, everyone.
I know.
I asked.
Germany,
Okay.
1940.
I can't see the future, and there's always possibilities of even armed people showing up and defending their well, right? So, I mean, we don't know, but
Well, actually,
in an ideal situation, the city will be in control of those wells, and they will be opening them up for everybody.
we have them from Santa Quin all the way down, and we have people coming to our meetings from neighboring cities as well. So you're fine.
Second question, those packets, are those being
Yeah.
disseminated to neighbors that are not members of the church?
Yes, every single household in Payson should be receiving a packet. So
should-
all of the words have gone to every single household.
Yep.
And it
there's
is from
another
the
question.
city, it is not from the church. The church has the ward plan, which uses the packets. The city is using the church to distribute the packets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just real quick, we were in an area once where everything was destroyed, so there was no water, no electricity for a month. And what I learned is that you better have your own water and your own supply, because they started throwing out water, just big trucks, just giving people, bottled water. And they would knock people over. And when it's a real emergency, people are
Yes.
not nice.
Yeah. People get mean in emergency.
Say that one more time. In a stressful situation.
People are not nice.
I mean,
and
you
so
see what they do on
really need to be
I-15. Like,
Right.
people are not nice on I-15. They're sure they're not going to be nice on water. For
Yeah. So when there is an emergency, it is safest to have your own supply. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Let's moving on.
You should be halfway through now.
Okay. We got Next, we're going to talk about filters.
First,
Are you going
Jim.
to put this on the website? Or?
So this is going to be shared on the newsletter, and we are also recording this presentation. So all of the links and all of the resources on here are going to be shared. Sign up for the newsletter. There is a QR code at the end of the presentation, and there's also one on the Facebook group.
Yep.
And it was shared on those little pamphlets that got passed out, hopefully in your ward on Sunday.
Yeah, and then the newsletters that I send out, if you had signed up for them, will have another QR and a link that you can click on, and you'll be able to access all of the content that we have through that.
Yeah.
There's
So-
still some of those handouts out in the foyer too.
That's
Oh,
great.
brilliant.
Yeah, you can grab one
You can
there.
grab one on your way out too.
All right, so
Okay.
water, first about filters. So I know we jumped back to containers even though we're in filters. And the reason is because there are some containers that actually have filters in them, and we need to know what type of containers we can use. So we talked a little bit about using the portable ones, which you can see there. And then there's also these Life Straw individual water bottles for hiking and stuff like that. They sanitize the water, and you can be thinking about things like this to help you in that sanitation effort as well as containing your water. So you got to hold it, but you also want it to be clean. But you can be thinking about large stationary things. For example, you have your water in your garage and it's been working great for 5 years. You can do portable ones that you can carry around, go get water from sources that you can identify, and then individual use containers. Oh. Now,
Filters.
sanitizing it, there's lots of methods these days to sanitize water. The most important is that you collect a few of them. One is none, and two is one when there's an emergency. And so have multiple backups of your backups, especially for water.
Something could fail, and then you're left with nothing if you only had that one thing. So have multiple options.
Now there's different types of filters. There's gravity-fed filters, there's pumps, and there's personal ones. So like this is an example of a personal one, a Life Straw. You can use it just right in the stream. You just dip it in the stream, you can suck up from the stream, or you can get water out. Yes?
It doesn't work if it gets dirt in it.
It doesn't work if it gets dirt in it.
Yes.
It's very good.
Filters the dirt out.
So
Yeah.
something that is important is to have the smaller containers that you can fill up, and then you can take that Life Straw and
Let the sediment
go
drop.
from the smaller container.
Yep.
So even a t-shirt can filter out a lot of that sediment. So just be creative.
These type of pump filters, you can draw water out, and so you don't have to be standing in the water and they pump, but they do require energy and force to be able to use these kind. And then there's gravity-fed filters where you put the water in the top and it's going to filter down to the bottom
And it is
reservoir
best to then filter out as much sediment as you can before you put it in there.
right?
Yeah.
Because like she said, and as soon as those filters get caked with sediment, you're not going to be filtering anything. There are other types, like Life Water makes one that's a bag that hangs from a tree, and then it has the filter on the backside, so you get that gravity fed. Lots
Whatever
of options.
you choose, filter, filter, filter. Make
Yep.
sure you have them in your storage.
And then when it comes to tablets and also boiling, the same concept, pass it through like a t-shirt or something to get all the sediments out before you try to boil it or filter it, because you need to get those solids out of your water.
Right. So we have some up here that you can look at.
Yeah, some tablets.
You
Okay,
have to boil water longer at higher elevations.
very good. Yes, so I put 5 minutes up there, but up here, we're at 5,500 feet, you probably need to boil it for about 6 minutes.
Okay.
Water
Little
self-reliance. So, getting self-reliant. Now, a lot of us in these areas, there are restrictions on wells, so we're just gonna touch this really quickly. But if you are in
Yeah.
an area where you can get a well and you have water rights, then you could think about getting a well to help yourself as well as the rest of your community. But you do have to apply for wells, and usually they have to be professionally
They're
dug.
quite expensive.
But
so-
a shallow well that is not for drinking purposes, you can get. The thing is as of 2024, the law has changed in Utah that even if you have water rights on your own property, you still have to get a permit to get a well. So I've thrown out the links here on how to apply for a permit if you do have water rights in your area and you have some land that you could put a shallow well for emergency use. Something to think about that you could do.
Okay. However, this is a lot more accessible for a lot of us. Rain barrels. You go on Amazon, you can get the little doohickey Did we put it in here?
I did not.
Okay.
But there's a whole lot of different versions of these that plug into
So many.
your downspout and bring that water into a rain barrel.
That's against the law in Utah.
It actually is not. Look at
Oh, you're
this.
kidding me.
We're gonna help you. We're
Okay,
gonna help
thank
you.
you.
We're gonna help
thank
you. Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
'Cause I thought-
I have two.
Yes, they do.
It isn't illegal, you just have to go online and say, I'm gonna have rain barrel and.
Let's talk about the legality because there's some concerns here. So first,
You are legally allowed.
This statement up here is directly from the government website, right? You may collect up to 100 gallons in 2 containers, no more than 2 containers, and each container cannot be over 100 gallons. So you're,
200 gallons.
no, 100 gallons. They can both be 50 gallons or they could be 225 gallons. You can't have more than 2 containers, and combined, you can't have more than 100. You could have just 1 container, that's 100 gallons. But you can't collect more than 100 gallons, and you cannot have more than 2 containers unless...
That is unregistered.
Yeah, unregistered. You do not have to report that at all.
You are allowed to do that much without telling anyone.
Yeah.
If you want to store more than that, you're allowed to have a storage capacity with 2,500 gallons of water, but you need to register it. And it is super easy. Basically, you go on the government website and you say, hi, I'm a prepper. This is my address. And that's it. And they give you this
And the
little
website is right here.
certificate. Rainwater harvest registration receipt.
Yeah.
And I just said, I've got 4 containers up to 220 gallons. I can update this as well and get more.
Question.
So this is just for rainwater storage, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That we're talking about, because we can have more than that in our own, for our own personal
Yes.
storage.
Of
or
course,
whatever.
yeah.
This is just for rainwater collection.
Yes.
Yeah, this is just collecting rainwater that comes down from the sky.
And we're
They
gonna
control
talk
that.
about the nastiness of rainwater collection too. Have a little-
We're not going to get into a
We can use rainwater for our gardens. That is the main reason in a drought why I think I would collect my rainwater, is because I like to garden a lot. But that is also a source that can be filtered. I am not going to get into the sprays, but I'll just say that, and you can disseminate the
another
information in that way.
When it rained really heavy a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
we're in the process of re-roofing, so we didn't have, our downspouts are not corrected. But we put 5-gallon buckets, and we've probably collected 50 gallons of water in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That we're just storing to water our grass and flowers.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
came on the
During
roof.
one rain for just a few hours, you can fill up a full 50 gallon
You can.
drum on
I
each
moved
spout.
one of my rain barrels from one corner to another. So I emptied it out, moved it, and within like the first hour of a rainstorm, it was full and
Yeah.
overflowing. It's fast. You have a
It-
whole roof that can flow into that. And it's just going back into the ground if you're not going to use it. So it's good to figure that out.
Okay, also
Okay.
there is no charge for registration. It
Doesn't
really
cost.
is just a form this big, and they just want very basic information. They want your name and your address so they can come knock on your door if FEMA wants to get some water, right? That's pretty much it.
I don't think that's-
I don't know why they're collecting that information, but they do want to know if you have more than 100 gallons. Okay, so storage containers, I just quickly put this up here. You can get a very large container, and like you said, when it comes to just porting potable water that you want to, you can, that's kind of the price. You can store, rainwater wise, you could put one of these on your property and store all your rainwater in here if you wanted to go into those extremes. Okay, being water wise, so let's talk a little bit about this.
Okay, we are in a drought. We didn't get the snowpack that we needed, and it's a little worrisome for some people. So some of you might be here just for that. Okay, water-wise, lawn care. We all love our green lawns, right? But there is a way to water your lawns that will encourage deeper root growth so that you have to water less often, and the ground will hold that water longer. So then we use less water on our lawns. Lawns are not a bog plant, so we should not be watering them every day. We should water at most like 2 times a week. We should be getting our lawn's roots to go deeper. And the way you do that is you kind of like Like wean them off the water if you've been watering too much, and just give them a really good deep watering. You can start with twice a week and then you can drop it down to once a week. They should be getting about an inch of water a week, and that will encourage those roots to go down. Okay, and we have all of these links here. There's 5 links here. They all tell you how to do this. Do you have my papers? Where's that? I have this cool little flyer that they've put out that just tells you the same thing. So multiple ways to do it. Watering deeply and infrequently. Water in the early morning. Please don't water in the middle of the day. You're burning your grass and you're evaporating your water. Let's see. You can also, mowing. Let your grass grow a little taller. It will be more drought tolerant if your grass is a little taller. So they say the minimum is 2.5 inches tall, but it's better to get to the 3 to 4 inch range. That will stop the water from evaporating from the soil, and it will be able to be shaded and get deeper, and then your roots can get that water.
Can we talk timing on that? Because in the spring, like now, is
Mm-hmm.
better to mow a little bit lower so the sun can get down and warm up the ground and mix up the roots. Isn't there a timeline when you let that grass get longer? Do you know?
So we're talking about a timeline
As far as a drought goes, I would say mowing so that the sun can hit the soil in a drought is probably not a good idea. Let's just keep them a little longer, and then we can wait to water them a little later in the season. And one thing that they say here, brown is the new green in a drought. So be okay with a brown lawn. By nature, the cool season grasses we use tend to turn brown and go dormant during the hot summer months. Sorry, it's just true. When there's more rainfall and temperatures go down, the grass will green up again. So there's also other things that we can plant. So we can reduce or we can replace our lawn area with native plants. We can plant drought-tolerant grasses, and we can also even just overseed with clover. Clover is beautiful, and it's more drought-tolerant, and it puts more nutrients into the soil. Our front lawn has clover, and it's so beautiful and soft to walk on. So they have miniature clover varieties that don't even need to be mowed and won't produce a lot of flowers, so then you won't have the problem with a lot of bees.
Do you have somewhere to find the miniature clover? Because I've been
Yes.
trying to-
I have some links that I can share. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll remember to put some links for micro clover.
Yeah.
Is there another?
And I received a message from the mayor in with my bill,
Yeah.
which was talking about watering and talking about a
Schedule?
enhancement that you can put on your lawn, that's over at Olson's.
I think was it Humate? It might have been.
Yeah, it's like
Mm-hmm.
MUC, humic acid.
Okay. Yeah.
Something, yes, anyway, and he said Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Yeah. We're on an every
It's
other
like
day.
3 days,
Yes.
3 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're
So,
They are putting a schedule on us, so just be aware of that. That is something that is in our community. If you are in Payson, I don't know what other communities are doing that, but they are limiting you to watering 3 times a week, so make sure you know what address you are, because people could report you if you're watering when you're not supposed to be.
We're not supposed to be watering every day, like every other day of the week, though, because like I said, bog plants, we've got water lilies and things that thrive in wet conditions, but our lawns are not bog plants. So we don't need to water those days, but they are there to spread the water throughout the community. Also, our gardens.
surprised that it was that often.
Yeah,
Yep.
yes.
We are going to talk about gardens next.
Oh, yes. Okay, you guys, this is my favorite topic. I love gardening. But how do we garden in the desert, right? So my number one key is to mulch your gardens. Mulch acts like a blanket. So it, what, the word just left my mind.
I don't know what you're...
Sorry, you guys, perimenopause. It insulates the soil. Thank you. It insulates the soil in the winter, and it keeps that soil from getting too cold and destroying all those beautiful microorganisms. And also in the summer, it blocks that heat from getting and evaporating the top layer. So mulch is also like a sponge. This is the coolest thing. You guys, God is amazing. That mulch will absorb the water, and then it will release the water through the soil during times where it's dry. So as the rain comes and everything, it actually kind of evens out the watering for you. Mulch is brilliant. Okay.
And if you go into the forest, you'll notice that the first 6 inches of the forest floor is mulch. The forest never gets tilled. And if you dig in there, you will find the richest, deepest, darkest, most wonderful soil down underneath that mulch. So you don't need to be tilling that earth up and releasing all the nutrients and breaking up the soil. Just keep putting more mulch on the top, and it will break down as it sinks in, and it will continue to protect your soil and make it soft and delicious.
So I do have a YouTube video on my garden. We can share the link on this, and I have a lovely relationship with, oh, there it is. I love mulch, and so I just expand on all of this.
2 comments, I think.
Yeah, what's your favorite mulch? What do you
My favorite mulch is a wood-based mulch. It's not just wood chips, though. You have to have the leaf matter in with it. You've got all the green stuff mixed in with like the branchy wood. And I get mine, if you can believe it, at the Payson landfill. So we have a ton of orchards in our area. We have a lot of green waste that people drop off at the landfill. The landfill will then take that and they'll grind it up. They'll put it through a sifter. Thank you. And then what comes out the other side of the sifter is this beautiful, just woody-based mulch. Then they put it in these long, big rows and piles, and they bake it for a minimum of 1 year, which is important because that breaks down any of the sprays that someone who's non-organic would have put on it, and that all breaks down. So currently at the Payson landfill, their mulch has been there for 3 years, and it is gorgeous. I always, in the fall and then the spring, I'll put a couple inches of mulch on my garden, and it just builds that soil. I never till.
Around here, it's really good.
The soil is a world. Right underneath our feet, there's a world happening. There's a layer of mycelium, there's bugs, there's worms, and they all kind of hang out in their layers. And if you are tilling and flipping that soil every year, then the world is going to have to reset. So it puts your garden back a little bit. But if you leave that world, the mycelium layer is like a telephone. It tells the roots.
Do not till.
There's some nutrients this way, there's some nutrients that way. What do you need? And so the roots are actually communicating with the mycelium layer to get the nutrients in. It's so amazing, you guys. And I talk a lot about this in my other videos, so we're gonna move on for water. You can watch that one.
We have a comment.
Can anyone go to the Payson landfill and buy the mulch?
Yes, anyone can.
Yeah,
You don't have to be
even
Payson
card
resident.
you for Payson
You can't-
resident.
Yeah.
It's the same price for everybody. It doesn't matter where you're from.
Did you bring
Yeah.
your own bags? Do they bag it for you?
They're going to use a
it's-
dump from a giant tractor.
Borrow
so
a trailer or a truck, because they're gonna give you a big
you buy it
scoop.
by the yard.
1 yard scoop is $12.
You can maybe buy a half yard, I think, if they're being friendly that day, but they don't really like to do half yards because it's already, the scoop that they're using is, just so you know, the scoop they use is a 3-yard scoop, right? So the guy in the driver's seat of that giant tractor is trying to gauge what 1 cubic yard looks like, and he always overestimates because he doesn't want to rip you off.
So just
they're
buy
very
1 yard
generous.
at a time.
Just buy a yard at a time. They will scoop that up. They will probably drop 2 yards into your trailer.
Yeah.
Okay?
And then share with your neighbors if it's too much for you.
Yeah.
But I use it all. I'll put it on all of my beds.
All right, moving on. Also, think about drip irrigation for your plants. If you are watering the entire area, it is going to be a lot of water. It's also going to be putting it in places you're not putting plants. So if you are planting just every once in a while plants, try drip irrigation. It'll conserve water. Also, a gray water separation is something you can consider. That is where in your house you have your black water and you have your gray water. And so if you're using up and you can separate those two waters, especially during an emergency, you can separate those waters and the gray water can go out on your plants. It does not have to go waste, but black water you do not want to use.
What is black water and gray water?
Sewer.
So
Yeah,
black
gray
water is
from the
sewage.
sink. So it'll have your soaps and things in it from the sink and the shower. Black water is from your toilets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So don't do that.
Yeah.
But it is going to take a lot of.
Black water on gardens and stuff like that.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't
So
do that.
later
You
on,
might
we're going
have
to
used
talk
to.
about sanitation. Ask me that again.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about
Okay,
that.
good.
Density planting. They're on the seed packets. It tells you like space this 2 feet from each plant. You do not need to pay attention to that. Okay, you can do a density planting. It will shade the ground, and then your plants will be able to have the water that they need, and the weeds will not grow as well. So if you want to space them a little closer, there's the square foot gardening method. He talks about that. Do you just pack those plants in there? I know people that take seeds and go like this, and they have beautiful gardens. So you just...
But there are certain plants that like to be with certain plants.
Yes,
there are companion
So be aware of
plants. Like, yes, refer to my gardening
There are
video.
some plants that will choke out other plants
Yes,
because they
true.
grow so big, nothing else can grow. Like if you grow a cabbage and you plant too many things close to that cabbage, the cabbage will like drown out everyone. No
It
one else will get
gets big.
sun. So
But, okay,
pay attention to
another-
that, but plant them as close as possible to
Another
save
way
that soil.
to have water in your gardens is something called hugelkultur. It's where you bury large pieces of wood and branches at the bottom of your bed, and then you can put your compost and soil on top, and that will break down and it will act like a sponge, and it will hold on to the water so that the roots have access to more water. Essentially it's mulching from the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
that's something to look into.
just something to mention about these. Look these things up online. Learn more about like hugelkultur. I don't even know how to say that word. But when it comes to your gardening, do check out Leah's video. She has a lot of information. We'll be sending this out. But also, I lost what I was
If
gonna say,
you
so-
don't have a garden, you need to have a garden.
Yeah.
We need to be growing our own food. President Spencer W. Kimball and Harold Bealey, all of them, they all talk about gardens. Grow as much food as you feasibly can on your own property.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. There was a little bit of an astonishment. You don't till. The reason why we don't want to till, I just wanted to cover this really quick, is two. One, you do lose a ton of nutrients and you lose a ton of water through dehydration of the ground and soil. And the other thing is, if you think about what's the number one thing that plants need, it's nitrogen. What is nitrogen? It's a gas. So if you till that soil, you release all the nitrogen into the air. And so you don't want to till. And there's actually a whole movement about no tilling, and there's regenerative farming that is starting to really hit the market. It was about 15 years ago that the guy invented that, and the United States said, we don't want to have anything to do with that. You don't know what you're talking about. So he went to Canada, he taught them how to do it, and they thrived. And then the United States 5 years later goes, oh, maybe we should pay attention to this guy. And so they're starting to bring it here, and it was only like 3 years ago they started to actually advertise it to children in school so they would tell their families about it. So it's starting to make traction, but definitely.
It was actually in the 1960s.
1960s, okay.
But
It's been a while.
it's been around for a while. Yeah.
What was that?
No-till?
No-till.
Oh, regenerative agriculture as
Regenerative
well.
agriculture.
Yes. Tina?
I was just gonna say, if you want to make Leah's like whole day, just call her and ask her to come over to your garden.
I would love that.
We're in the middle of putting in our landscaping, and like we're nowhere near like ready, but I just showed her what we were gonna do, and she was literally jumping up and down, so excited. So like,
I did post on the
really does
Facebook page.
wanna help, like,
Yeah.
she really, really does.
I post on the Facebook page every now and then. If anyone needs help, give me a call. But no one really has, only like a few. Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Oh, you guys, this is the most important thing in a disaster. Here's why. I don't want to have to deal with anyone else's poop. Okay? Every single person in the stake must understand sanitation.
So as we're talking,
First and most important.
as we're talking about water, right? Water is one of the most important things when it comes to sanitation. Right? The cities, ancient cities that thrived because they had water coming in and water going out of their city. And any places where there was a blockage, where they couldn't get the waste out, that city did not do so well. So we need to pay attention to this.
Okay, most important thing for you to understand in an emergency. Poop can turn into compost. Pee can actually be a nitrogen additive for plants. But if you mix poo and pee, you get sewage. Okay, everybody understand? Separate your poo and your pee. It needs to be in two separate areas. Okay, so for women, it's a little more difficult. You can get a diverter. You can, they have buckets that have a divider that catches the pee and the poo. You can get these, Amazon has them. They also have like little funnels that you can use, okay? I know this is getting, if you're a little uncomfortable, I apologize, but I don't want to have to deal with everyone else's poo, okay?
Yeah.
And that could happen if you are continuing to use your toilet in an emergency. There's going to be problems.
So the one good thing about our area is that everything flows downhill. So
Yay.
In an emergency, it's very likely that our water still works because it's flowing down to us, and then our septic still work, it flows out. And if the sewage treatment plant does not have enough energy to do the treatment that it's supposed to do, they're just going to let it continue to flow down into the lake, Utah Lake. And that's the way they used to do it, and they will do it again if they have to. So everything does flow downhill. Now, if there's an earthquake and pipes break, then we have a problem, right? And as everyone keeps flushing and it runs into this, well, there was a pipe here, now it's a wall. And as it runs into there, it's going to start backing up. So now this is going to cause a problem. So be thinking about what you're going to do in that situation. Now there's lots of things you can do. One of the things you can do is you can just open up your back flush of your pipes and you can put something in there that's going to keep it from coming up. Now we have got a plumber here.
Called a step valve or?
But you can also install a valve. This is a
valve.
system backup check valve right here. And so you can actually install a valve as it's coming into your house so that it goes. The one thing is about these valves, they do require maintenance every 6 months. So if you do install one, don't just install it and forget about it, but you need to maintenance it. So talk to a professional plumber about how you could get one of those installed. And what it will do is that check valve, it only allows water to leave your house. And as soon as water tries to come back in, it closes. And so then you don't have to worry about a veritable poo flood in your house because your neighbors keep flushing and it's not going anywhere.
Okay, they do have really good information on Be Ready Utah when it comes to sanitation. There's the cat litter method. So, hey, if you don't have cats, you can still store a cat litter in your storage. Get a bag, put it in there, and then you just you have your bucket, you throw some cat litter in, and that takes care of the smell. It's also good, it can be buried, that cat litter method. So you can do a trench hole, just keep it,
Yep. And we have a comment?
Eric had a great point there, and that does happen. And I lived in the Seattle, Washington area for 64 years, and when we had an earthquake in the early 90s, I believe, it was a big one, and all of that valley downtown where the Seahawks, the Mariners, all of that place, every pipe in that area did exactly that.
Ugh.
And we couldn't, everything was shut down. Everything was shut down. You couldn't flush anything. So it was a nightmare. It was great for us. In my company, we made a lot of money. but yeah, everybody was out of business for months.
Yes.
Until you could actually dig it up.
This is no joke.
Because when it goes out of the building, it exits the building, it's a hard pipe that goes out into a flexible pipe, and then it breaks. And then it breaks, and you've also got in that same ditch, you've got fiber optics, So you just can't go out there and dig.
Yeah. So be thinking about how you're going to keep that from coming into your house. And,
Guys, get a bucket, get some cat litter, and women get a diverter.
Yep.
Okay.
And figure out how you're going to do it for your own family, because you won't be able to flush forever if that is backed up. You need to have another method. Be thinking about it.
Okay.
All right.
Wait, before we move on.
Okay.
So as far as sanitation goes, yes.
Sorry, that's if you're connected to the sewer system.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. If you have your own septic.
If you have your own septic, oh, honey, you're going to be sitting pretty.
I'm not saying I do.
Unless that might
I'm
break.
just.
Unless the septic breaks, right?
Unless you're.
Yeah. There we go. And have backup power for that.
One thing to pay attention to, I will say this, thank you for mentioning septic systems. So if you are running on a septic, be aware that most of them are not gravity fed. Most of them do have a pump down in the tank, and so it collects all of the sewage. Then the solid matter sinks to the bottom, the liquid matter floats to the top, and then it'll spill over to the second tank, right? And that does naturally, right? The second tank will fill with the water, the liquid, and then you'll have a pump that will then pump it into your fill or your
Field.
percolation system and put it out into the whatever area you have to put the percolation in. Now, in Utah, we do not have the ponds that they have in Missouri, because you can actually have all that water drain into a pond that's downhill, or you pump it up into a pond and it'll just evaporate. But here they require drain fields where it all goes in there. If the electricity is out, your septic is out. Whereas everyone in the city's
If the water is
sewage
out.
will still flow into Utah Lake if all the electricity goes out. So be paying attention if you have septic and your septic is not gravity fed, that you can run into problems when your electricity is out and you can have a backup issue.
So it's good for everybody to know the 2-bucket system.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
These are sanitizing tablets for doing your dishes. So we are not going to have a lot of water. This is what we're talking about. We might, I know. So you would then wipe off the dish as well as you can, and you'd have, you could have 2 of the buckets. You could have kind of a wash bucket and a rinse, and then this is a tablet that you would put in the rinse water that sanitizes the dishes. So these are kind of fun. It helps to lessen the water. Yes.
Can't you use bleach?
Yes, you can, but bleach degrades. So bleach does not last forever in your storage. These will, if you get the soaps that are bar soaps, those will last you forever, okay? Also, women, menstrual cups. That's all I'll have to say on that matter. If you want to talk to me later, you can. But have these thoughts about sanitation. How are we going to wash? How are we going to take care of our daughters? How are we going to, not get into that mess of disease, cholera outbreaks, all the things that could happen if we are not wise in our water usage? Okay.
All right.
And that, you guys, we kept it under an hour.
Almost, we got this last thing. Be Ready group. This is the QR code to sign up for a Be Ready group. We would love your feedback. Also, there's a place there if you do feel comfortable about teaching a class, or you know something about a piece of preparedness that you would like to be able to share with, and you want to help lead one of these discussions, please put that information down. Also, if there's certain things that you want to learn about. So we have the 12 areas of preparedness from Be Ready Utah, but we can add to that or have a piece of the section be about something you're interested in. Let us know what you're interested in on there. And then we will be giving out a newsletter. So this class will put the bullet points, the high hitters, and also a link to this material on that newsletter. So sign up for the newsletter and be part of that.
Okay.
Any questions?
Is there a topic for next month?
We do not have one yet.
There is. Actually, we've
there
been
is.
discussing it.
I'm wrong.
Hold on.
I thought we hadn't decided yet, but I guess we decided.
I need to pull up my notes from our meeting. Give me a minute.
That's all right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm going to go over to the question slide.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I don't have a
For
question.
May, we're thinking about our documents. So May we'll have our documents class. And then for June, we're going to be doing our 72-hour kits, our bags, and getting that evacuation mindset figured out. So that will be our June class. And then in July, we're going to do cooking and preserving and barbecuing. So we'll have a fun outdoors meeting in July.
Ways
so those
to
are the
cook
3
without
that we're
primary
going to.
sources.
So along with our documents, we'll be talking about estate planning. This is some very important things that I think a lot of people are interested in.
Do we have dates for those yet, or are you just?
We're always
The third
Saturday at 9 o'clock. So third Saturday every month, we're going to try to have this
Yeah.
class. And if we outgrow this room, we'll steal another
We
room
would
that's
love
bigger.
to outgrow this room. Let's get to the cultural hall.
Just a clarification, when she says documents, we're talking about like last will and testament documents, your estate planning, trusts, things that you need to have in place for the people who you will leave behind and how you plan all of that out. And even, if there's an emergency in your own life, what do you need to have in place so that you can continue to take care of yourself and your family?
Medical emergencies. Financial emergencies. We're going to talk about all
That's
of
what
those.
she means when she says documents. And I think it's going to be a very good class. Encourage everyone to come. And we're going to try to have an expert here that can help us to know these things, that they have experience dealing with it.
We're not going to try,
We're going to have.
We are going to have. Yes.
Another question?
I just texted the guy who did our septic to ask him whether we had gravity or electric, and it doesn't matter to, no, I'm just kidding. We have gravity. But he said many of them aren't passive, and he's always sure to add a generator connection to those systems just in case. If anyone in the class needs something like that, he'd be thrilled to help. He honestly did a fantastic job, was really great to work with. So if you do have septic, and you want him to check and see how it is, or if you need an adjustment, let me know and I'll give you his name. He was phenomenal to work with.
Brilliant.
Yep.
And now, at the end of this class, I want to encourage everyone, please disseminate this information to the stake. Share what you have learned today. Share the newsletter link. Share the YouTube link that we're going to post out there. And just let's not have to deal with other people's poo. Okay.
Moral of the story.
Yes. Moral of the story, water is important. We need it for drinking. We need it for washing.